Hi everybody, Honeybee Honey here. Hey, I just wanted to give you an update today. Tilt the camera down a little bit, you can see hive number 6 behind me. Today is May 26th, and I want to just give you an update on the status of hive number 6 and hive number 22 over there. It's been 16 days since I put a frame with some swarm cells in this hive, and we're going to check on them. And I'm going to hopefully give you a few tips, before you even get into the hive on what may or may not be going on there. I have not looked into the hive since the last film that I released, and we'll take a look at both of them and see from the outside what we think is going to happen. Then we'll look inside. Hopefully this will help. On those days where you can't get out and actually look into a hive, but you can come out and see how their behavior is on the outside. So stay tuned. So this is hive number 6. You can see that there's very little activity out right here. That could be a robber there. It probably wasn't, but you can see there's very little activity. So if they had a queen that had hatched and come back and was laying, you'd see more activity more than likely. So the signs that the queen actually hatched, mated, and came back are pretty slim. There's also a chance that that just hasn't happened yet. 16 days. It can sometimes take up to a month or so before you see anything. But let's go ahead and, just off the behavior of the hive, I'd be concerned about this hive no matter what hive it was, whether it was a weak hive or not. And let's go ahead and take a look inside and see what we find. We should see hatched queen cells out, and we should hopefully see, we might actually see the queen in there roaming around, and a virgin queen. If so, I'll try to get a shot of that. Usually not very hard on a hive like this because there's only a few frames of bees. So let's go ahead and take a look inside. Okay, let's see what we find in here. Another thing that might kick you off is they might be aggressive. Whenever bees are stressed, they're more aggressive. And let's see here. This thing is glued down pretty good. Whenever you pop a lid like that, best to just put it right back down, give it a second, and then go ahead and smoke them, because that popping sound really is not something that the bees like to feel. It's probably more of a feel thing for them. She had her tail in the air, giving me a warning. You can see there's not very many bees up here right off the bat. Some of them are coming around. You see the entrance getting a little busier now just because some of the bees flew from the lid into the air, and now they're going through the front entrance. Clue too, whenever you do this, you can, and that is whenever you put a swarm cell in a hive, the queen will usually come right back to that same frame. Not always, but usually. Now the strength of the colony has grown. We put in some brood, so actually there's, hopefully you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames of bees in there. That's pretty good. That's actually that's a good sign. Not a sign I really expected to see, but we gave them a lot of brood, and that's the reason why there's an increase in force. Of course, it's not getting any stronger any sooner now, because whether there's a queen in here or not, and whether or not she's laying eggs, it takes 23 days for that egg to start hatching into a worker. So we're going to basically dive in. So if you remember, it was these 2 frames that I inserted into the hive. It was these 2 frames. So that's where I want to check first. Also, you can tell that the cluster is around those 2 frames. If you remember right, is these 2 frames where the bees were before when I inserted those 2 frames. So they've moved their colony over to the brood as expected. So let's go straight over to them a little bit. over to these main two. Again, working a hive, try to keep as many frames together as you can. Especially virgin queens are pretty, well, a lot of them, not all of them, but oftentimes they are a little runny. They don't stay in the same place, they kind of run around. So this was not the frame with the queen on it, the queen cell. Let me take a look outside of camera view for eggs. I don't think I see any, but didn't see anything there. No signs of a queen there. They also are a little jittery, so I don't know if you can hear it, but they're a little loud, and you know, when you pick up the frame, they kind of move a little faster, especially if you exhale on them just a little accidentally or otherwise. This had to be the frame with the queen cells on it. And I see no signs of eggs, which is not necessarily a bad thing yet. It's still early. Do not see a queen yet. And I don't hear a queen. There are still no signs of a queen on this frame. However, note that there's still a viable queen cell there. And looks like it's about ready to pop. So unless the queen in that cell died, maybe because we did have some wonky weather right after I did it. It wasn't horrible, but it was a little crazy. We did have some crazy weather, so it is possible that a queen cell down there could have frozen. This is another one. I'm going to gently pop the cap because it doesn't look deep enough to have anything in there. There's nothing in there. And then you can see how the bees are kind of bulking up right here. That may not be anything. There's some here too, and some there. A lot of times they protect their queen by covering her. And this is different from balling. But I'm going to blow on them a little bit and try to get them to move and see if there is a queen under that. You can see how you gently blow on them, they moved out of the way. I don't see anything. There's honey in there. So that's probably what they're probably just because of the smoke maybe or something. That might be the issue. But so far, oh wait, there is an egg in there. I do actually see an egg. It doesn't mean it's an egg from a queen, but there is actually an egg in there. It's by itself, so chances are it's not from a queen, it's from a drone layer. So, nothing there except that there is still a queen cell, viable queen cell there. Let's see, since there's nobody over here. Well, I don't want to hurt it, so it's pretty tough. But it's not a good sign. And in fact, if I find a colony that is about to swarm or something, has more swarm cells, I'll put another frame in there. Let's take a look at this frame too, just to make sure. Sometimes there'll be a frame off when they come back. This is also, there's plenty of bees on this frame, at least coming from the top. It's pretty heavy, so it's probably because of some honey. Offhand, I'm going to say this hive did not requeen successfully, and that queen cell that we have in there is not viable. It should have hatched by now, so any queen cells I put in there would have hatched within a few days. So on the off chance that that's what's going on, I leave it there, but basically I have to figure out another solution for this hive. So this attempt was unsuccessful. This frame is heavy. Other frame is heavy because of a lot of pollen and honey, by the way. As is this comb. So ideally what I need is another queen cell to put in this hive. I don't think it's going to happen today for sure, because I don't know of any hives that are going to have that. And maybe I'll find one. But the other solutions, I could get a purchase queen, and I could put a queen in a cage in here. That's harder to accept here. The most successful thing to do with this hive to save the bees themselves would be to unite it with a queen-right colony. Okay, this is hive 22, and you can see a lot more activity in front of this hive than in the other hive. Doesn't mean they have a queen, but you can definitely see activity. A lot more of it. In fact, they're not extremely busy, and hives that are in the process of requeening often aren't, but there is activity. No signs of robbing. There wasn't on the other hive either. I haven't seen any pollen come in yet, but I'm almost positive there was some pollen, some cream colored pollen. So just from the outset, they're bringing in pollen, they're working, there's lots of bees. My camera is actually right in the way, that's why they're kind of building up. And what they did was they built up behind the camera, and now they're finding ways around it, and they're coming on in. So you can see that they actually look pretty good. So high probability that they are at least queen right, or they haven't lost their queen and the ability to make another queen. So there's still a chance for them. So let's go into the hive and look real quick. Okay, there wasn't a whole lot. There was a lot of bees in the top hive body, but my guess kind of right off the bat was that the actual brood is going to be down here. So what I want to do is there's like hardly any bees on this side of the hive body. So I want to take this frame on the far side out to give me some room to work. So yes, in these hives, or in these videos, I'm looking at trying to expand everybody's knowledge, intermediate, advanced, whatever. But I'm also looking for the beginner, and for beginners that are wondering how you work a hive. You want lots of room. You don't want to pull a frame out and roll a queen, or even roll bees, because it does kind of tick them off. They still haven't pulled. This is that frame that only half of it was pulled. Also, did you see that that guard just kind of jumped at the hive tool? One of the ways you can test to see how aggressive they are is to do this with your hive tool. They're not being very aggressive, not at all. If they are, you are invading their home a little bit. Just give them a little bit of smoke on the top. It'll kind of drive them down, and it'll calm them down a little bit. So there's the guard. It raised her tail at me, but you can do that. So let's take a look and see if I see eggs or anything. It was the frames down below that had the queen on them, queen cells. So that's where I'm going to start looking. They also aren't acting very nervous. This had some queen cells on it. No sign of eggs yet. Let me look for a queen. Don't see a queen. And it is still early. I would check about every week if you have to do this. I wasn't able to. It's been 16 days, like I said before, but I would check, about every week. But it often takes up to about a month before you really see eggs and a queen. It really surprises you. It shouldn't take that long. Queen should have hatched within a few days of me, looking in the hive and everything. There's still actually a queen cell here, right here, that's capped over. But the queen should have hatched by now, and she should have made it, and should be starting laying about now. If that were the case, I would probably see it on one of the frames that she hatched from. That'd be one of these two frames, I believe. It's not always the case, but that's usually, it's pretty, most of the time I would say that's what happens. Okay. Don't see a queen there. I see some new nectar. Got a honey flow going on a little bit. We've had a lot of rain lately. With that rain came really cool weather, which was wonky weather to be trying to get queens mated. So they're a little jumpy, which is a sign that they're a little stressed, which means they probably don't have a queen yet. And there are no signs of eggs here. This was not a frame, I don't believe, that had swarm cells on it. Take a look at a couple more frames, but I'm gonna say right now that, you know, they have not requeened. They do not safely have a mated queen yet. But their behavior suggests that they're stressed, but not overly stressed to me. That's just something you're gonna have to gain experience. Okay, so here's lots of queen cells that have been. This was the big one apparently. So here's a queen cell that is still viable. But over here is a queen cell that is open. Here's a queen cell that's open. Here's a queen cell that's open. Here's a queen cell that's open. There's 4 open queen cells. So let me check for eggs outside of the view of the camera. I do not see any virgin queens in here. I do not hear any virgin queens. Sometimes you will, because there's still an open queen cell, or there's still a viable queen cell down there, it looks like. And remember, that queen cell just had a larva in it before. So, oh, I hear a queen. I do. I hear a virgin queen. She is honking. I'll try to shut up and see if you can hear it. There she is. She is right here. I hope you can see that. That is a virgin queen running around right there. So virgin queens have more of a triangular shaped body. And she may be mated or not. I don't see anything hanging off of her rear end there. But there is a queen. So no wonder the hive isn't stressed. But I don't see any eggs at all. I did look for eggs. I don't see any eggs. I know there's a queen. I'm going to wait for her. She's right here now. And you can see, I hope the camera can see this. Let me reposition it just to make sure. Here she is right here. There she is. Crawling through there. Virgin queen. She has a fairly long body. She is a Caucasian queen. But I'm going to close her up right now because I do not want anything to happen to her. And I know she's right in the middle. And that is why you keep your frames always together like this. Now I can move frames, and I'm going to have to move all these frames over here to here, but I know she's safe. I also know she's running around, which is what I told you virgin queens will do. So I'm going to do it quickly. Why do you keep all your frames together? So that you can push them all over together. There could be more than one virgin queen in here, but I know there's at least one. I really don't care if there's more than one at this point. Now I know that she's safely in this area right here. There's also a lot of bees over here. There could be virgin queens running around over here. Whatever the case may be. But we know they have a queen. Based on her physical, so that triangular shaped body is the sign of a virgin queen. Once they're mated, they have more of a rounder, their tail is a little more round. Not so triangular. So, because we know we have a virgin queen, because we know she may not be mated, she probably isn't mated, and because we know she's running around, I'm going to close this hive up, and I'll talk to you in a second. By the way, I'm going to switch the camera down. I want to show you something. The drones are just coming in. Hopefully you can see it, but there's a lot of chaos right here. What it is, a lot of drones are coming in. There's a drone right there. They're coming in because what they do is the drones go out at a certain time of day to mate with queens. And then they come back after a little while, rest for a while, then they go out again, and they go to these drone congregation areas is what they call them, where lots of drones congregate, and the queen actually goes and finds those drone congregation areas. They're at certain altitudes for European bees, and you know, I don't know what those numbers are or exactly where they are. I've never actually, you know, seen a drone congregation area. I'm just going off of what I've read from scientists and from very, very experienced beekeepers. But all the drones are coming in right now. That means that in that other hive that we just checked, hive number 6, maybe the queen was out mating. Maybe that was the deal. So you just don't know. We'll give them both the hives. We'll give more time, and we'll go from there. Let me close them up. A drone just flew in the top too. Okay, so there you have it. Been 16 days. We have a live queen in here, virgin queen. 4 queens hatched out. We don't know what happened to those other queens. Did they die or not? Don't know. I do know that it was really windy yesterday, which is why I didn't work yesterday, the bees. And we get a lot of wind that blows things around, and especially where these hives are located, you can see there's not very many dead bees out front. There's one dying. There's one that's been dead a long time, and then there's one that was just brought out. That's because the wind kind of blows it away. But if you don't have that, if queens were killed in their cells by a different queen, you'll find their bodies right outside the hive. And even in windy areas, you can, as long as it's somewhat protected a little bit, sometimes just by the hive position. If you know, in our case, yesterday the wind was blowing out of the west, so it was blowing this direction. Oh, and I can see it. Isn't that crazy? So, wind was blowing in a westward direction. There's a queen, and she's been dead a while. So, there's a dead queen. Yeah, my other camera ran out of film there, or space anyway. Found a queen because the winds had blown from the west direction. Found a queen over there. I think that's about where I left off on the last one. But really, all I want to say is that to finish up this video is that, you know, we're in a good spot. So we know that there's a virgin queen in this hive. We don't know about the other hive. I could have missed her, or she could have been out mating. The drones were congregating about, or they were coming back from the DCA about a minute or two before I pointed it out on film. And so she could have been out mating. They weren't very jumpy in that other hive, so that's a good sign. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate all the great comments.